As a hush comes over the crowd, he steps to the podium. What will he say? The exact same things I've said the last 2 nights. So if you've been here for Monday and Tuesday, bear with me. Good evening. Welcome. Glad you're here. How's day 3? Day 3, right? Thumbs up? Maybe do a little wave. Okay, let's not do the wave. I'm going to go with that. Anyway, really glad you're here. I'm David Simpson. I'm the program director here at the Fine Arts Work Center. My pronouns are he, him, his. Welcome to our third Faculty Talk of the Week. We're glad you're here. We have a great lineup. Very excited about tonight. We have writer Sarah Schulman. Longtime and beloved member of the Summer Workshop faculty and a new member of the Summer Workshop faculty, but hopefully, eventually, a beloved and long time. Already beloved, but hopefully a long time. I'll stop. Photographer Rashod Taylor. They're going to both do amazing talks, and then they'll do a joint Q&A afterwards, sitting up here. So stick around for it. They're always often just as or more interesting. Nothing against the talks or the readings, but the conversations are fascinating. So I hope you'll stick around. Sarah will be signing books at the back of the room after her talk, and books will be for sale for faculty this week. Also, the bookstore and the gallery will be open after the Q&A, so be sure to check out books that are in there of other faculty, both current and past, and the exhibit in the gallery, which is terrific. It's called Everyone We Know Is Here. It's curated by former Falk Fellow Heidi Hahn, and it consists of work by about 20 or so former Falk Fellows. It's a gorgeous show, so be sure to check it out. Other stuff, as always, a big hand to East End Books for managing our bookstore for us. I'm paid to say that. Well, we really do appreciate it. And also grateful to Cape Cod 5 Savings Bank for supporting our summer public programming. What else? The restrooms continue to be down the hall on the left if you need it. The sign-up sheet, you guys are doing great on the sign-up sheet. Big hand for yourselves. I can't wait for tomorrow. It's always my favorite night of the week. I'm inspired and impressed by the art that we see in the open studios and the written words that people share from this podium. Such bravery and inspiration. I'm proud to be associated with the Work Center every Thursday night, and I often cry. Good tears. Anyway, so enough of me. I'm a Scorpio. I'm Canadian by birth. Anyway, I'll stop. Finally, please do turn your cell phones to silent so that we can give our full, respectful attention to the speakers. And with that, I'd like to invite one of Sarah Schulman's students, Chris Bartlett, to the stage to introduce Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's such an honor to be here, and I'm here really on behalf of my fellow classmates, a root and cheer from my fellow classmates in the class. I've known Sarah for over 30 years, and I'll say just a little bit about her biography. Distinguished professor at Northwestern, she founded the Mix Festival, the ACT UP AIDS Oral History Project, and there's a lengthy list, but I just wanted to say that she's been such a compelling teacher to me long before I met her. As a young queer and a feminist, being introduced to her ideas very early on and being told to take them seriously from people that I cared about. And I started reading her books After Dolores, a wonderful lesbian novel. For those of us who always wish to be lesbians, but through fault of birth we're not, her fiction was one of the ways that we could understand lesbian lives. And then, understanding queer lives more generally, her book on familial homophobia, which was impactful for me in understanding the dynamics that had caused me to be the sort of gay man I was in my family. And then I got to know her through ACT UP. So I was in ACT UP Philadelphia, Sarah was in ACT UP New York. The two chapters always did quite a bit together. We ended up at demonstrations together. We learned from each other. And Sarah was also with the Lesbian Avengers. And we had a branch called the Women's Health Action Mobilization, which got us out defending abortion clinics as part of HIV activism early on. And a lot of this activism stemmed from ideas of Sarah and her colleagues and friends. And I think it's something unique about the way she teaches, both in her classes and in her books and in her activism, that it creates community, and it creates community across difference, even when we disagree with each other, even when we fight. You know, in her book, Conflict is Not Abuse, understanding that we can have conflict and have difficult conversations and really engage with them and be honest and sincere and perhaps get through on the other end without beating each other up. So, you know, all of these ideas were impactful, and most recently, of course, her book, Let the Record Show, on the history of ACT UP New York, which if you haven't read it, it just, you can't put it down once you pick it up. So, you know, for those of us who are really stalkers of Sarah Schulman, her Facebook page is one of the places we go. And she just celebrated her birthday recently. And Edmund White, yeah, happy birthday, well belated. Edmund White, who's one of our distinguished gay literary figures, said in a comment, I'm not sure I'll get the exact words right, but Sarah, you are the smartest person I know. And I don't think he writes that on everyone's Facebook page. But I thought, you know, smart, even smart, the smartest person we know is like a dime a dozen, right? You know, smart is just smart. But Sarah's a lot more than smart because she applies her wit and intelligence and wisdom and experience to actually creating communities that make a difference. And so tonight she's going to be sharing about these sort of these alternative films. And, you know, the queers very early on, both, you know, in New York and Philadelphia, were showing these films, The Firehouse in New York and Vito Russo, you know, showing queer ideas. And so Mix took it to this next level of really exploring what queer communities look like in this century. So I'm really excited for her presentation. I thank her for her friendship and mentorship, and please join me in welcoming Sarah Schulman.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So let's start. And thank you, Miracle, who's going to be running the show. So the story starts in 1986. It's the epicenter of the AIDS crisis. 40,000 people have died. There are no treatments. The Supreme Court decides in Bowers v. Hardwick to uphold the sodomy law in the middle of a mass death experience and keep gay sex illegal. ACT UP was not going to be founded for a year. And that year, 1986, an experimental filmmaker named Jim Hubbard and I decided to start a New York lesbian and gay experimental film festival that became known as Mix and lasted for 33 years. We had offshoots in Brazil, Mexico, and Copenhagen. We showed thousands of films to hundreds of thousands of people. But more importantly, we created artists, because if you have a venue, then people see that they have a place that if they make work, it can be seen. And so a lot of artists were created there. And just to give you a sense of what happened at Mix, we showed Todd Haynes' very first film, Assassins. I got him his first review ever. We were the first place to show Paris is Burning before the film was even mixed. And then at year 7, Jim and I decided to hand the fiscally healthy organization over to younger curators of color. And we just said anybody who wants to, and those people turned out to be now Shari Freelo at Sundance, Rajendra Roy, who is the chief film curator at MoMA, Kareem Ainuz, who is a Brazilian filmmaker who shows at Cannes, etc. So I believe in the open door, and I think it really works. Okay, so 10 years later, a young Liberian-born lesbian filmmaker named Cheryl Taylor decided to make a feature. And this was the very first Black lesbian feature in the history of the world. So I'm going to show you her trailer.
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm a filmmaker. I'm not really a filmmaker, but I have a videotaping business with my friend Tamara, and I work at a video store, so I'm working on being a filmmaker. The problem is I don't know what I want to make a film on. I know it has to be about Black women because our stories have never been told. So I've been renting movies. No, I haven't been renting movies, but I get movies from the video store that I work at, and I've taken all these films out from the 30s and 40s with Black actresses in them, like Hattie McDaniel and Louise Beavers. And in these films, in some of the films, the Black actresses aren't even listed in the credits, and I was just totally shocked by that. So in this one film that came into the store, Plantation Memories, I saw the most beautiful Black mammy named Elsie. And I just had to show this, so. Watch.
Oh, don't cry, Missy. Master Charles is coming back, for sure. I know he is. Do you really think so, Elsie? Oh, yes, Missy Barbara, I know he is. I prayed to God all night long, and this morning, his little angel told me that he was coming back. Back to you.
Her name, the Watermelon Woman. That's right, Watermelon Woman. Is Watermelon Woman her first name, her last name, or is it her whole name? I don't know, but girlfriend has it going on, and I think I've figured out what my project's gonna be on. I'm gonna make a movie about her. I'm gonna find out what her real name is, who she was and is, everything I can find out about her. Because something in her face, something in the way she looks and moves is serious, is interesting. And I'm gonna just tell you all about it.
So Cheryl made, so just so you know, the archival material was all made by an artist named Zoe Leonard, who's now an international art star, but she made the moving image archival work and also the still photography. So Cheryl asked me to come and be an actor in Watermelon Woman. So I went to Philadelphia, but when I got there, my scene had not been written yet. So I had to write it. So here it is.
Hey, sister, how you doing? You been to the archives before?
Just, Annie, leave the sister alone. Come over here and work the camera. I think it's about time to get started. I think Anna Jay's ready for us. Okay?
All right.
Welcome to the Center for Lesbian Information and Technology. Actually, we're very disorganized here, but it's because we're just a volunteer-run collective, and you know how hard it is. Things take time. But, you know, someday we're going to have a great system where people are going to donate materials, and then they're going to be logged, they're going to be categorized, they're going to be sorted, they're going to be stored. But right now, they're just in boxes.
Well, I came to find out about the Black collection on lesbians. Is that a separate collection, or?
It's very separate.
Oh.
We received a very generous gift from the Hysteria Foundation, but they wanted it to be used exclusively for African American lesbians, so if we have any photographs that there are white people in, we just cross them out. Now come with me and I'll show you the files. For example, you might find this very interesting. Now, here we have, let's see, all kinds of really great things. Oh, look, here's a map. This is a map of the most popular lesbian and gay hotspots of Manhattan in the 20s and 30s. It's just incredible.
Wow. Looks like there were more dyke bars then than there are now.
Actually, there were no exclusively female bars. It was mostly mixed speakeasies and then the young white debutante crowd. You know, they'd race uptown at midnight for a big plate of yardbirds and strings.
What?
Fried chicken and spaghetti. And then they'd wash it all down with a big, cold, frosty glass of 100 proof iced tea. Doesn't that sound great? I'd really like to have one right now. I mean, you know, I'm in recovery and everything, but there's nothing wrong with remembering the way things used to be.
Okay.
Well, anyway, let's just keep it anonymous.
Okay, so this began my long career of playing the annoying white person in films by queer directors of color, as you will see. Anyway, about 20 years later, Cheryl was very frustrated. She had made a few features, but nothing that she really wanted to make. So she called me and said that she had gotten 8 people to put $3,000 each in. So she had a budget of $30,000 to make a feature. And she's like, Sarah, would you come to LA at your own expense and write the movie for free? And I was like, sure. So I went, and the way we were able to make this film, it's called The Owls. The way we were able to make it for free is that it was in LA, and there's all these lesbians who work in Hollywood as gaffers and electricians and all this stuff. So they would work like their 12-hour shift at some stupid TV show, and then they would take all the lights and everything and put them in a truck and drive over and set them up and shoot the owls for free at night. So here's the trailer for The Owls.
Cocktail? Hey. Wanna sit?
It's your ex. I'm back in town.
I didn't split you fucking up. I wasn't. You were too much of a pussy. All I want is money. Hello?
Sit the fuck down!
I've been in and out of sight all my life. I thought you were going to ask me a difficult question.
Okay. Now the truth, I can tell you the truth, the trailer is better than the film. Because we had a 60-page script and Cheryl only shot 30 pages, so it didn't make any sense. So she stuck in all this documentary footage, and it was a kind of a shit show, the whole thing. But this Cuban lesbian filmmaker named Ana Margarita Albello made a documentary called Hooters, The Making of the Owls. That's actually better than The Owls, and I'm going to show you a little bit from that.
In a matter of weeks, filmmakers, activists, scholars, collaborators of all ages, genders, and sexualities would band together, in front and behind the camera, to form the Parliament Collective and create The Owls, the story of 4 older, disillusioned lesbians from the 90s, now living secluded lives away from the hubbub and limelight they once knew. With only a few weeks to prepare, their challenge is to shoot a feature film in 6 days.
Anyone in this room who's ever made a film knows that it's virtually scientifically impossible to shoot 60 pages of a script in 5 days.
With a tiny budget, and to do it through the collaborative filmmaking process, where absolutely everyone has a say.
I think also. I still think. So I just feel like.
Sound like a recipe for disaster? We'll soon find out.
Okay. Well, miraculously, the Owls got into the Berlin Film Festival. So the whole motley crew went to Berlin, and it was completely chaotic. We were running all over Berlin, doing all this cocaine. Cheryl and I both ended up having affairs with the same person without knowing it. It was total chaos. But one thing that happened was this guy came up to us named Jürgen Bruning, and he's like, I am a queer porn producer. Do you want to make a queer porn film? We said, okay. So I started studying porn films, and the first thing that Cheryl and I were like is, what is the last lesbian taboo? And we decided it was mommy. So I wrote a film called Mommy is Coming. That's the name of the film. Now, originally, I studied a lot of porn films, and my big idea was that I wrote this really funny film. It was kind of like What's Up, Doc, you know, that Barbra Streisand film? So it had like confused identities and slamming hotel door rooms and all this kind of stuff. And then there were 7 classic porn scenes, and I thought I was inventing a new genre. So Cheryl goes to Berlin. They cast like some people who are really experienced porn stars and some people who are like strippers and dominatrixes and stuff to be in the film. And Cheryl goes to shoot it in 5 days. So she calls me from Berlin and she's like, Schulman, bad news. Germans aren't funny. So it turns out they couldn't land any of the jokes. So she shot the whole thing. I went to LA and we watched it and it was horrible. But the sex scenes were great, because we'd be like, we need a 3-way bondage dungeon scene. And they'd go like, and there it would be. So we had to do filler in between all the sex scenes. So Cheryl did like a music video and a travelogue and all of that. And you can find it on the web somewhere. It is rated XXX. But here is the trailer.
Who the fuck are you? Hey! Keep driving.
When I think of my great loves, you just don't measure up. I want fireworks. I want trumpets. You are nothing.
That was harsh.
Ah, welcome. Bienvenue. Welcome.
This is my boyfriend, Tori. I think you could learn something from us.
Claudia? You sent Claudia to a sex club without me? Dylan?
Leave me alone, Mama. How am I supposed to be my own woman who's constantly wanting to be in my life?
Mommy is coming.
I'm actually looking for some adventures.
What happened? I just got shot by Cupid's arrow.
Holy shit. This city is full of the most beautiful men.
I'm all yours.
You look so hot. Let's go to a room and have some serious makeup sex.
Here.
Who was that?
Claudia? Claude? Mama?
My store, my design.
And as ever proof that there is no relationship between quality and reward, Mommy is Coming got into the Berlin Film Festival. Okay, so now let's get back to Mix. So one component of Mix was that we always showed archival films. And one of the films that we have been grappling with for years was a film that was made in 1967 by a white woman filmmaker named Shirley Clark called Portrait of Jason. She did a 12-hour shoot at the Chelsea Hotel focusing on a gay black man named Jason Holiday. And then she cut it down to 90 minutes. And it's the first record of a gay black man in the history of cinema that's on screen. But it's extremely problematic because you never see her, and he kind of falls apart on the film, and it's very objectifying and all of this stuff. And this film dominated gay black male representation for many, many years. It wasn't until the 90s that people like Marlon Riggs and Isaac Julian were making films. And so it really took a long time for gay black men to actually have a voice. So first I'm going to show you a trailer from the original Portrait of Jason.
Would you give me a drink, please?
Shirley Clark, Portrait of Jason, roll 1, sound 1.
Okay, Jason, go. My name is Jason Holiday. My name is Jason Holiday. My name is Aaron Payne. I know he's around when the sky and the ground started ringing. Everyone in New York has a gimmick. So I found out that mine was hustling. I hear in advance. Some people like museums and they spend all day looking at pictures. I spend all day looking at people. It's the same form of art. And I can make you feel that you're the most desirable human being that ever walked this earth. It's the only music that makes me dance. I'm a pretty frightening cat, you know. People that know me will tell you that. But, like, I don't mean any harm, but the harm is done. I think it's about time now I picked up my gay buns and swished out of here.
Okay. So one of the directors of
Would you give me a
Mix,
drink, please?
Stephen Winter, a gay black man who at that point, his most famous film was called Chocolate Babies, if anyone's seen that. He decided that he wanted to make an answer film to this, that it was 50 years had passed and it was time to respond to Portrait of Jason. So he cast me to play Shirley Clark, and he cast Jack Waters to play Jason, and he set up a parallel 12-hour improv. So we improv'd in character for 12 hours. And what he did was, whereas in the original, Shirley had her own camera crew and she was behind the camera, in Stephen Winter's version, I am there with a fake camera crew and he's behind me. So Shirley is completely revealed in the film. And I'm going to show you the trailer from Jason and Shirley.
What did the Trenton County Sheriff call the nigga that got shot 14 times? The worst case of suicide he ever did see.
Okay, cut. Where's Jason?
You're asking me questions without any real meaning.
You know, you're in a very privileged position.
Jason!
Woo!
Just think of it like an interview. You will be known.
What if I say no? Everything that happens in my life is all about other people's needs. The more money the movie makes, the more money the player takes.
You don't be in the same room with someone like this. This is drug addict, 100% a degenerate. You don't want him.
Nico, get him another drink.
Cameras roll.
With colored people, man's world is a woman's world pretending that it's a man's world.
Jason by Shirley Clark.
You'll find
Take
some
one.
music.
Don't feel like you have to put on a show. You know, just be yourself.
Boom. Showtime. Free love? That's the only love I can afford.
Cut.
Problem with unemployment is, as soon as you wake up, you're on the job.
You're giving the audience what they want.
What they think they want. I want to know what it is about this movie that's going to help my show. I have the talent, but the money, Shirley.
Anyone who says that they need money to make art isn't telling the truth. Money is just an excuse for you.
My experience is very quickly becoming everybody's experience. They just don't call it the same thing.
You let everything stop you. Why?
So this is the trick of all tricks. You make what you do what you like, and then you make what you like what you do. And when they come together, it's all groovy.
Jason is doing everything that we want him to do. But don't let him know. Okay. So the last section, I have two more. So back to AIDS. So Jim Hubbard and I started Mix in the middle of the epicenter of the AIDS crisis. We were both in ACT UP. We both left ACT UP in the 90s. 96, the medications that worked came into being. And ACT UP kind of dissipated. And then 1999 is the internet revolution. And nothing from ACT UP had been digitized. So if you Googled ACT UP in 1999, you wouldn't find anything, and it was like we had disappeared. So Jim and I decided to start the ACT UP Oral History Project in 2001. And this is the website. It's actuporalhistory.org. And for the next 18 years, we interviewed 188 surviving members of ACT UP. We've had 14 million hits on the website. You can watch all of the interviews for free. You can watch hundreds of hours of archival footage for free, and you can download all the transcripts for free. It's all open access. So as we were collecting all this archival footage, Jim decided he wanted to make a film. Now, we thought it would be fairly easy to get funding, but it wasn't, and I'm going to explain why. We went to the people who fund documentary film, and they were like, a documentary is 3 to 5 protagonists who go on a journey. And Jim was like, well, I can't really do that because ACT UP is about the group. If you singled out individuals, you would be distorting the truth of the story because, you know, form is content, form has meaning. So we couldn't get any film money. So all the money came from social justice groups and 500 individuals who donated money, like $25 or $100 each. And that's why it took 10 years to make the film. But it's called United in Anger. It's directed by Jim Hubbard. We co-produced it, and it's available open access like everything we do. It's on Canopy and also on YouTube. So here's the trailer.
New York at that time was like crazy because people were getting sick every day. 3, 4, 5, 6 people that you hear about being sick.
We were very scared that the Reagan administration was going to put people with AIDS in internment camps. And I think that we came close to that in this country.
How deeply are Americans worried about AIDS? A Los Angeles Times poll found that 50% of Americans favor quarantine for AIDS victims. 15% said AIDS victims should be tattooed.
It was about people in power not caring about the lives of people who didn't have power.
Kramer delivered a fiery speech, and I remember he asked like half of the audience to stand up, and he said, "You're all going to be dead in 6 months. Now what are we going to do about it?"
AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. We are a diverse, nonpartisan group of individuals united in anger and committed to direct action to end the AIDS crisis.
Release those drugs! Release those drugs!
When we're activists, when we really act up, we have a big impact, and we get what we're demanding, and when we're silent, we don't. We'll never be silent again! Act up! We'll never be silent again! Act up!
It was where I really got a sense of community.
I mean, I got the feeling then that people felt that lives depended on them.
Healthcare is the right! Healthcare is the right! Act up! Fight back! Fight it!
These drug companies are profiteering on our lives, and that we cannot accept that anymore.
Thank you.
We love you, Sarah. Thank you so much. Amazing. And now I'd like to invite one of Rashod's students to the stage to introduce him. Can I invite, please, Judith German-Heinz to the stage, please?
Well, I actually never met Rashod before this workshop, so thanks, David, for inviting him, or whoever he did. But I became familiar with his work through his tintype work, as I'm also using that process for my art. For those of you who are not familiar, who are not photographers, tintypes are monochromatic, handmade photograph made with the wet bit collodion process, which was developed in the 1850s. And that was the main technique used for portraits during the Victorian era and also during the Civil War. I would like to introduce Rashod to you through one of his tintypes, which is also my favorite, called The Future. A beautiful little black boy in his white tank top undershirt sitting on a dining chair in a quieted restlessness, which is normally hard to achieve with a 5-year-old. His left arm is casually resting on the back of the chair. His right one politely falls on his lap. The vertical American flag far behind him provides the backdrop with its blurry 50 stars rising above his head and its stripes enclosing his fragile body like a prison cell. A light is hitting the left side of his face, creating an eerie bright spot on his forehead. The other side of his face is sunk into darkness, innocent, vulnerable. His warm but serious gaze directed to the camera, looking at us. I think about 10 types of Victorian men and women, the resting bitch gaze that was required for a long exposure and also suited for the expression of pride of wealth and class. And I'm looking at the brave gaze of this black child. Honesty, perseverance. I think about the photographer on the side of the battlefield at Gettysburg, next to his wooden shed, his professional darkroom. He's hiding from the sun under his focusing cloth, while looking into the eyes of a young Union soldier, appearing on the ground glass at the back of his camera upside down and backwards. This tintype would be sent to the soldiers' loved ones as an indexical proof of living existence at that moment, but not a sure statement shortly after. And I think about the loving father of this black little boy looking through his lens, focusing on those big black eyes by fearing for the future of his baby, since the present is still attached to that bloody history. Rashod is a fine art portrait photographer whose work addresses themes of family, culture, legacy, and the Black experience. He attended Murray State University and received a bachelor's degree in art with a specialization in fine art photography. Since then, Rashod has exhibited and published his work across the United States and internationally. Most recently, his work was acquired by the Museum of Fine Art Houston for his series Little Black Boy. Rashod is the 2021 recipient of their Arnold Newman Prize for the New Directions of Photographic Portraiture. He's one of the 2020 Critical Mass Top 50 finalists, winner of a Lens Culture Critics' Choice Award, and the 2021 Future Shoot Emerging Photography Award winner. Rashod's clients include National Geographic, Essence, Magazine, ProPublica, and BuzzFeed News. His work has been featured in CNN, The Atlantic, The New Yorker, The Guardian, Hulu, Forbes, Feature Shoot, and Lens Scratch, among others. He lives in Springfield, Missouri, with his wife and son. Please give a warm welcome to Rashod Taylor.
Thank you. Wow. Man, y'all see, you can get me crying all before I speak. Man, this is crazy. How's everyone doing tonight? I'll give you, I'm getting set up so you can get all my socials and the email. Yeah, go ahead and get that. You need to reach out. But I'm just really excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, David. I don't think my buddy Esteban is here, but I think he might have told David about me. I met him at Anderson Ranch, so really just grateful for the opportunity and glad to be able to share my work with you all today. So let me get my stopwatch ready, though, because, you know, make sure I keep the time here. Everybody get that? You good? Okay. I got another one in the back, just to make sure. Just to make sure. Okay. So I'll get. I currently live in Missouri, like she said. I'm a Midwestern guy. I born in Illinois, and yeah, Midwest. It's great. So wanted to start off with this. Just my family. So my family plays a large role in my artwork. So a lot of times you'll see them pictured, and then other people too. But you know, for me, a lot of my work centers on family, right? And for me, family, you know, I feel like you photograph the people close to you the best. And really, for me, to make good art, you know, you want to photograph or, you know, write about or paint about things that you're closest to. So for me, it's my family. So real quick, left to right, it's my family, group family shot. Myself, my wife Marianne, my mom Desetra, Big Larry, my sister Crystal, and then my younger brother Marcus. And then bottom left is me and LJ, and then LJ, my wife and I, and then my wife and I. So yeah, I want to start with that because you'll see them here. Today I'm going to kind of just focus on two ongoing bodies of work that I've been working on for quite some time. I'll give you some of my influences, and then also I'd like to kind of show progress. So some of the images aren't part of the series, but they kind of led up to where I'm at today. So the two series are My America and Little Black Boy. Going back to the wet plate process, which, I mean, an amazing introduction too. Thank you, by the way, Judith. I got interested in wet plate photography back in probably 2011. I saw an amazing photographer by the name of Joni Sternbach. Her work, she photographed surfers and surfboards up, you know, on the East Coast and Hawaii, all over. But I just saw these images. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I quickly, you know, Googled and tried to find, you know, the knowledge, because the whole wet plate process, as Judith alluded to, you know, it dates back to 1850, right? And it's a process where you coat glass or aluminum or tin, and you synthesize it in silver nitrate. Then you put it in, you make an exposure, then you develop it, then you fix it, then you wash it, then you varnish it. So it's a process. So I'm really into the process because at the time I really wanted to just get back to making tangible art. As a photographer, I shot a lot of digital, and I don't know, for me, I'm really interested in these one-of-a-kind art pieces, something that you can live with, something that will stay with you and your family forever. Because these tint types, you know, the ones even back in the 1800s, they're still great. As long as you keep them, you know, out of the sun, they're gonna last generations. And that kind of plays a role in my work too when I think about legacy. But I'll flip through some of these pictures here. So this is kind of some of my first wet plates. This is the gentleman, Dale Bernstein, who taught me wet plate photography. Big props to him. He has a lot of funny stories, actually, because any photography scholars here, you know, so he assisted Richard Avedon, Irving Penn, Arnold Newman, who I was graciously able to win his award. Dale is a great guy. And so first off, I just started making portraits, right? Portraits of my family. This is my wife, Marianne, and she's Dominican, by the way. So yeah, if you meet her, you'll see her and fall in love with her just like I did. But that's my baby. So, you know, a lot of the portraits I made, you know, either outside or inside, I'm interested in, you know, the Black body, the Black family, understanding those dynamics. And then also, I took my class out today, photographing strangers, right? So this situation, these kids were just out at the lake, and I was able to, they were like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, well, let's make a picture. So, you know, serendipity and moments like this are awesome too. And yeah, so I got really into wet plate, continued to make portraits. So this was around, gosh, was it 2013, 2014? No, 2014, I think. And then I was really impacted by just the news, right? So I think at that time, Trayvon Martin, that whole situation was going on. And then obviously a whole litany of Black, you know, children, men, kids, women, dying at the hands of police or other people. So obviously for me, I never personally dealt with that, but it impacted me, right? Because that could be my sister, my aunt, my uncle, my cousin, my friend. And I wanted to address that, and really more so address kind of the deep-rooted, hatred and institutional racism that's here in our country through systems like you think the police, you think about, how did the police come around? Well, in the South, they came around because of slave patrols, right? And there's just a ton of history that validates that. So I'm really interested in seeing how the history plays a part in where we're at today. So, trigger warning is, sorry, on the right, just if you can't handle that turn. But so I was digging into history, and so on the left, obviously, this is Frederick Douglass. So he is one of the most photographed people in the 19th century. So he was photographed over, I think, 160, he sat for 160 portrait sittings, which is really unheard of, especially for a black man. And it's really interesting because everything was calculated from him. So I would encourage you to go back and read about Frederick Douglass. He has a great autobiography that he wrote. But essentially, he was a slave and freed, and he went on an abolitionist, right? Abolitionist, orator, social justice. I mean, he did it all, right? He's probably one of the most influential people in the 19th century, in my opinion. So, but the whole idea of the portraiture is this: a portrait is power. He saw it as an opportunity to show dignity, respect, and prominence that black people didn't have at the time. So, that's part of the reason why he set for these images, because he thought that the portrait was power. And this idea of power is an interesting construct, obviously, right? Because black people had never had power, right? Ever. So when you think about, I thought about that, and I thought about him, and then I think about photography and what it can do. I think about the media today and where we're at and how much power that narrative can have on people, especially in today when, not everyone's gonna do their own research. They're just gonna flip on the TV, look at an article, oh, this is gospel, right? No. So it's so powerful that I wanted to use that as part of the series to really drive home that idea. The image on the right is an image, it's called Scorched Peter or Whipped Peter. And essentially, the story of a slave who escaped to the North right around Civil War time and was going, it was a medical examination by the Union. And essentially they, did a medical examination and they saw his scorched back. And these pictures started to circulate. And I think, not that I think, I know. So what happened is, as these pictures circulated, the people in the North started to realize just how violent and just, diabolical really slavery is. Because you have to remember, back in this time, the travel of information was so slow, right? You got a horse and you got letters, and so a lot of times there was no mode of communication, and there is communication at the time, but they weren't going to show what slavery really was, right? So this helped embolden the North, and obviously we know what happened there with the victory. But again, going back to the point, I'm really interested in how that history plays into today. Just a little more updated from that. This is an image from Gordon Parks, and really in this image is really just kind of about his conflicted nature, because he's an American, but at the same time he's not treated like an American. He's like a second-class citizen, essentially. And Gordon Parks, was a big influence on me and my photography, along with a host of others. And I don't have time to get into all of my influences, but I put this image up just because I asked myself this question, especially when it comes to patriotism, and specifically black military service, as lots of my family have participated. And it's really this question of why. Why would a black person go serve in the military, dating back to, we could go back to Revolutionary War, really, if you want to go way back, right? Why would you sacrifice your life for a country that doesn't love you back? So that's the question I'm constantly going through and thinking through as I make my work. So as I make this work, and I talk to people, and I'll get to that too, but that's a question. And with photography, you don't find answers, you just ask questions, right? And asking more questions will get you to maybe not the end goal, but it will give you a piece of that that virtue or that truth that you're trying to find. So I started this series called My America. So as I've been just talking, it's really just a exploration of, my interpretation of, one, my lived experience as a black man in America, two, to connect the past and the present, and then also three, to look at what our future may hold. And I think all those questions are really pertinent today. So this is, and some of the images I'll kind of have a little commentary on, and some of them we'll just click through. But this is called The Past, and this is with the wet plate collodion process, and exactly why I use that process is really to weave in the past to the present, and then even look to the future. So this is really the past. I wanted it to be dark, and some of the images are a little bit darker, so it may be a little harder to see, but I encourage you to go to my website. You can see all of the images there. Also my dealers, I have 2 dealers, so we'll talk about that later. But getting back to it though, I really wanted just this little beam of light on his back. So I was, as I make imagery, I think about the scorched peter, I think about the power of the photograph, and also the power of just, the viewer spending time, with the images and letting them kind of marinate in a way. I like food, so I like to use those like marinate and seasoned, those kind of words. But, this image is the present. It's direct reflection of kind of how I was feeling with Trayvon Martin and just the countless killings of unarmed black men and also women too. So I like that. I wanted to, so obviously the background's the American flag. And so this is the image that Judith was talking about right here. So this is, I call this the future. So I think ultimately I still have a hope, right? A hope that the future will be better with a lot of work and with the next generation of people that are younger than me. So my son signifying the next generation there. But yeah, that one's really special to me. And as I go, influenced by African culture with the necklace. This is an image of my sister, and then I'm really interested in flags, if you couldn't tell. So just that question of patriotism and who we are. As black people, we're standing on stolen land, and we're not from here, right? We're foreigners in a foreign land, and I guess I really tie that to just even how I feel. Like, I don't know if I will ever really feel at home sometimes, right? And, a lot of these images, I want the viewer to kind of make their own assumptions and their own truths of America, and what it stands for. Still life. I think I just like the fact that the reflection in the glass, the flag is kind of backwards. And yeah, I don't do too many still lives, but those are fun. And then, yeah, so this one, I don't know. I think I live in Missouri too, by the way. So I don't know. I feel like everybody else is strapped and ready. So I mean, it's a little nervous when I had a quick story. Like when I used to be in financial services, and one of my first weeks at work, because I had a team reporting to me, and one of my agents say, hey, I can give you a ride. And I was like, okay. Then I jump in the car, and he's got a big old shotgun in this front dash. I'm like, oh, you can drive like that? It's like, oh yes, sir, I can. I'm like, okay, that's how we do it here in Missouri. So it was a great experience. So I've learned that it's nice, even if I don't have a gun, it's nice to have people that love me and like me to have guns. So then I feel protected, So this is actually called protection, believe it or not. So this one's a little dark, so yeah, with the lighting, but it's basically like it's a tattered flag. You can kind of see, does this laser work? no. You can kind of see like oh, thank you, appreciate it. You can kind of see the outline of the American flag. So this is a 8x10 10 type that I made. I kind of just really, before I made the plate, I just, took a screwdriver and just like made scratches and threw it on the ground and stomped on it a little bit. And then I made the picture of a still life of the flag just to kind of represent just my feelings, You can still see it. It's there. But it shows through all this like muck and just all this other stuff that's around it. Okay, so let me quick story. So as I progressed through the series, I wanted to kind of talk about Black military service. So had the opportunity to work with National Geographic and photograph or a story on Black military service. So here's a quick video, and also it shows just the process, because I know I'm a visual person, so it shows you the wet plate process, and I have a little commentary just on the process in here too, so enjoy. Hey everybody, so I'm about to pour this plate and walk you through step by step of the process. So first step is pouring, and let's see if I can do this properly. So you pour in the middle, in here, in the silver, one solid motion. Leave that in there for 3 minutes. All right, so left it in the silver bath for 3 minutes, and now I'm going to take it out. And the silver reacts with the collodion, and it makes an emulsion. So I kind of wipe off the excess a little bit more. Just make sure it's not any more silver there. So close this. Just metering at
1 second to 1.3 seconds.
Oh my God.
That's the normal,
That
experience. So come take a wet plate class from me. You can get that done. Great. So, and if you couldn't tell, I used to be in sales, so, in a former life. Now I'm an artist. Okay, so I'm going to flip through some of these images. So this is at Marietta Cemetery down in Marietta, Georgia, Marietta National Cemetery. And I just was enthralled just by the design and the shapes of the tombstones. And then obviously also just the levity and gravity of death, right, and war. So it is my great uncle, Uncle Lecky Taylor, who served in World War II. He was a medic. The woman that I photographed at the cemetery is my cousin. She also was a medic and served she had 2 tours, Iraq, Afghanistan. And yeah, so I just go back to that question. It's, about, what is it about military service for people of color, Black people, to be able to do that, to make the sacrifice? I mean, I feel like it's so selfless. And a lot of times, I talk to my family about it, and, it comes down to, a better life, education, because of the unfortunate position that they're in, which is not really the answer I like to hear. Like, the only reason you're going is because of economics and your situation because of this systemic racism, right? So, you know, I think part of it also was the hope that if you do this and serve your country, then you will be treated differently. And some cases, yes, some cases not. Some, you know, it's, you know, the jury's still out. But yeah, it was an amazing time. I got to, just to have a chance to photograph my own family, and being in that geo was pretty amazing. This is my other cousin. She is in the Georgia Army National Guard down in Georgia, and then these are two of my cousins, who their father is in the Air Force, and his father was in the Navy. So just like a long tradition of service. And I got this one too. So this is an ongoing series. I'm going to continue to do that. So I have a little bit of time. I'm going to go just a couple minutes over. All right. I wanted to read this just because it's really important, I think. And I think, yeah. So I'm just going to read it, and then we'll go through the pictures and just go from that. So my work addresses themes of race, culture, family, and legacy. And these images are a kind of family album filled with friends and family, birthdays, vacations, and everyday life. At the same time, these images tell you more than my family's story. They're a window into the Black American experience. As I document my son, I'm interested in examining his childhood and the world that he navigates. At the same time, these images show my own unspoken anxiety, fragility as it pertains to the well-being of my son and fatherhood. At times, I worry if he will be okay as he goes to school, or as he plays outside with friends as children do. These feelings are enhanced due to the realities of growing up Black in America. He can't live a carefree childhood as he deserves. There's this weight that comes with his Blackness, a weight that he's not ready to bear. It's my job to bear this weight as I'm accustomed to the sorrows and responsibility it brings, the weight of injustice, prejudice, and racism that has been interwoven in our society and institutional systems for hundreds of years. So this is a little Black boy. Again, on my website, you can spend lots of time there. But this first picture is the day he was born. And as a father, as a lot of people in the room know, or a mother, when you have your first child, I mean, it just changes you, right? It's just this thing you can't explain, right? You're in charge of this little human being. And it's both invigorating and exciting and also scary at the same time. So just like any dad, I photographed my child, and I will have to say something about this picture though. So this is the moment. So you see as he grabs my wife's gown and looks me directly in the eye with the camera, he's like, dude, you're gonna be sleeping on the couch a lot. I mean, it's true. I mean, it kind of was true a little bit, but but yeah, that's the moment I figured this out. Like, crap, this is gonna be interesting. We're gonna be going for a ride. So a lot of the images, it's everyday life, right? It's playing outside, it's being with friends, things like that. I think this image kind of changed it a little bit for me. I looked at the juxtaposition of him with his green big shirt and the police badge, and then this little white girl in the back, right? So for me, I was thinking through my photography and like, oh, well, I feel like I have something to say. Obviously these are my own personal family images, but I can make them say more, right? So in the work, I try to layer a lot of meaning in it, either through symbolism or just objects, his actions. So not only do they remind you of childhood, but for me, they go and show a new, not necessarily new, but they show Black life, Black family life in a different way. You see love, you see tenderness, you see the things that are not prevalent in the media. And you see, and for the fact of me making the images, whether I'm in the pictures or not, it's this feeling of presence. It's a feeling of a Black man being present with his family, which I want to get through with the pictures. Especially this one. So this one was really actually challenging to make because I think about this post-mortem look of my son, and this image is called Deep Sleep. And I think about you know, I have this fear. I mean, I talked to my class about it. I had this fear of losing him, but I don't want to see him die. And that's a thing. I mean, granted, every parent does it. That's the worst thing ever. But the reality of being black and knowing that that could happen, it's a higher probability, right? So I struggle with that. So, and that's what some of these images are. So some people say, oh, he looks peaceful. Yeah, he is. But it has a deeper meaning for me in terms of kind of what's going on in the picture. This one's called Black Panther. So this is actually it. So I do have a sense of humor too, even though this is like heavy stuff. But you know, life's too short to not have fun. So I mean, I saw a Trump sign, so I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing this, we're doing this. So, and then there's those tender moments. This is a diptych with my wife and I, Never Let Go. You know, I just think about how hard it is to let a child go. As they get older, you have to let them go, but it's this whole process of understanding that. Legacy is a part of my work. This is an image of LJ and his grandfather. And it's just really cool to see them interact and see him get spoiled by eating ice cream for breakfast. It's really weird. Like, I don't know why. Like, my parents never let me do that. But I just love the fact that his grandfather is there in his life, because I know a lot of other people don't get the opportunity. This is probably one of the more popular images here. LJ in his fort, and there goes my flags again. You know, I love those flags. But I think just like kids do, he's making a fort, but it's really more of a commentary on America. Standing in my parents' backyard, tired of fighting. So that, yeah. I feel like that all the time, tired of fighting. Poppy's hat. There's a couple more. So this one is really meaningful. Reflection of me. I'm interested in really just what we leave behind and legacy. You know, values. You know, when I'm gone, what did I do in training my child that will live on? And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of thoughts to that and legacy, but you know, at some point I'm going to be out of the frame, right? And it'll just be him. All right, we're going to go a little faster. This is called Protector, kind of a ode to black women. I just think about my aunts and cousins and single black women who have to take the reins and train up little black boys when fathers aren't there. So, you know, really this is kind of an ode to them. And I just think about some of the challenges that my own family have had with that and how important it is to raise up black women, you know. LJ and his bat. And, oh yeah, my son's half Dominican, so hopefully we can, you know, get him a little contract or something. I don't know. I want to send him to DR so he can play with the street kids. And then just intimate moments, you know, just me and him. And, you know, I'm hoping that he's still with it and he's still able to, he's into it. Because I mean, obviously all this, I need him to have consent and to be wanting to do it. So he's still wanting to do it, which is good. So I'm going to continue to make this work and really kind of maybe incorporate him into some more of the images in terms of him actually making the pictures himself. So there's more pictures of him, of him, self-portraits. And yeah, interested. Yeah, and I like to make people think, like, well, who's this white dude, you know, and with the cowboy hat. I'll tell you later who he is, but, you know, we got to keep moving. And then we're wrapping up here. This is the last image. This is one of my favorite ones. It's called Easter Sunday. But yeah, I just go back to times when, you know, your parents make you dress up for church, and his scowl is just intense. But again, I think the way it's layered, I think everyone can somehow identify with it because we've all have children in our lives, which really for me, I want to open up that door for people to really sit with the pictures and then look. And yeah, so I really like this quote. There are things in your life that only you will see, stories that only you will hear. If you don't tell them or write them down, if you don't make the picture, these things will not be seen. These things will not be heard. I feel like for me, telling my story and sharing my family with the world is important because if I didn't, people wouldn't be able to see my perspective, right? And I would encourage everyone here is most likely an artist. So everyone has their own preconceived notion, has their own skill set, has their own ability. So I would encourage all of you, you know, if you have an idea, say what you need to say, make the picture, paint the canvas, make the print, write the poem, whatever it is, because only you have your unique voice. So I encourage everyone to do that. So that is all. Thank you.
So we're going to do a little Q&A. Hey, come back, sit down. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding. But the only thing we ask is that you wait for Miracle or Bree to come to you with a microphone because we're live streaming. So we want the people at home to be able to hear your questions. So with that,
okay.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lola. I'm actually taking Sarah's class, but I have a question for you, Rashod. On the topic of legacy, will you be teaching your son photography and all these techniques, and what might it mean to pass that on, or to let him make his own choice about what kind of artist he wants to be?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of taken a liking to photography. Like, you know, he's, and there's actually, I don't think I showed it, but there's an image of him that I had in a recent solo show where he is, you know, he has a shutter release and he's taking the picture itself. So he's definitely shown a liking to that, and obviously I'm going to encourage that as much as possible. But you know, it's kind of up to him if he wants to continue. But yeah, we'll definitely make some plates here when he's old enough. But he's seen me do the processes, you know, tons of times. So yeah, I think that would be really cool. But also, I think, you know, I just want him to enjoy what he does and be able to just have a look on life and just care about people. And yeah.
Yeah. Thank the both of you. I thank the both of you a lot for sharing. It feels like I was like seeing a lot of like an archive of like the past and the future. So I like the kind of juxtaposition of both of y'all. My question for Rashod, I've been thinking a lot lately about blackness and black experience, and like talking about things as if they like are the past, like slavery, right? But like slavery very much happens every day in like prisons and jails and mental health institutions, simply because like, you know, it's still like very much legal in every state in America to like take away someone's voting privileges if they have a criminal record, right? And we know that like disproportionately black men and black people in general are jailed, right, and imprisoned. And I think a lot about like the conditions that people in prisons and jails are under every day. If anyone walked through a jail or prison right now, they would say this is inhumane, right? Similar to how we kind of look back at slavery and we're like, dang, how did that ever happen? And it's like, well, it's happening like right now. And it's very easy to kind of like distance ourselves from that. And I like that there's a kind of like drawing in your work. I'm just wondering, like, with thinking about the past, how do you contend with some of this, like, some of the themes that you explore, like not actually being in the past, like being the present as well? I know you're doing something on the black military experience, and like that is very much like still present, like just like the kind of thing that I was talking about with slavery not being something like in the past. So yeah, I was curious about that. And I'm also curious about like with Sarah, like the ongoing archive of queer history, because it's like very much like, I don't know, like we're still dealing with a lot of the same issues, obviously. Maybe it's not like AIDS advocacy, but it's very much still like a variation of us still having to say, hey, like, pay attention to us and stop distorting who we are. So I'm just wondering, like, how both of y'all really are, like, contending with the present, and the present looking different but the same as the past.
I'm very vocal. But I mean, I can't totally answer your question because you're bringing up a lot of different subjects. But I'm just as productive in terms of creating commentary and trying to imagine a future as I was 40 years ago. So it's ongoing for me.
Yeah, I think for me, it's interesting you say that because I think a lot of the pictures I make today that I have a commentary on the past, it's kind of disheartening, but it's almost like it's the same. Like it's this idea of, you know, police brutality, you know, mass incarceration, you know, and again, I don't know the stats, but I would say that a lot of those things are still about the same as they were maybe 20 or 30 years ago. Maybe better for sure. I'm not discounting anything, but I kind of look at it that way in a way, right? So that's, you know, that's one thing. And again, I mean, it's a great question. You got a lot there. But I think I contend with it with just making the pictures that I think are relevant for me, because I think for me, my art always comes from a personal place, right? So I think for me, I always focus on, because I think with art, you have to be selfish a little bit, right? Because ultimately, I'm trying to communicate with others how I feel, what I think, what I want, with whatever medium I have. So I guess for me, I think that internally first, and then I think almost as a, maybe not necessarily like a cherry on top or icing on the cake, but like the commentary on where we are today, then I try to like interweave that in. So I think for me, it's more about my own personal story and where I'm at, and then in some cases that applies to today. I'm trying to talk about that, but then in some cases it may not. But I do think, you know, with where my work is going, to have more of an active, being more of an active participant in what's happening today, whether that's in the work or whether it's not in the work, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, I just want to thank you both. They're just really powerful in different ways. But what struck me about both of them is this kind of like different archiving, but in a communal way. And I wanted to ask, like, creating communal kind of or community-based archiving art practices, because it's so anti-capitalist that wants it to be about like one hero and like one genius. If you can speculate or have some advice on like how to do that sustainably, or like what kind of workarounds, or what, you know, you talked about like 500 people with $100, you know, so, and your family is clearly supportive of your project, but since we're all kind of artists and trying to create in innovative and radical ways, just any thoughts on that?
Well, one thing about Mix and also ACT UP in terms of money is that, at least in the years that I was part of Mix, we never applied for grants. So, and ACT UP did not have a 501c3, so they didn't apply for grants either. So only if the community likes what you're doing, they will support you. And once they don't relate to what you're doing, maybe you shouldn't be supported. So that's a good measure, I think.
You said it all.
I have the microphone. I'm curious. I'm really interested for both of you in the ways that welcoming technical flaws into the work, and celebrating technical flaws becomes part of the celebration. I think, you know, in the era of Canva and slickness, you know, the beauty of older films, of older technologies, the ways we can connect through rumpled edges of the wet plate photograph. Can you just talk about your embrace of technical flaws and how that creates an emotional resonance or not, or what that means for you?
Yeah, sure. Good question. I think for me, I just think of humanity and us as humans. We're flawed. We're there. You know, it's one of those things that we're inevitably flawed, no matter how you look at it. And I think for me is embracing that in myself, in my family, you know, people around me. And I think about that also with the work, and I'm really drawn. That's why part of the reason why I'm drawn to wet plate, because it's almost like happy accidents in a way. You know, I can play. I can, you know, obviously there is technical skill involved, but you know, if a plate doesn't come out perfectly, that's okay. You know, I can make another one, or maybe the way that the swirl or the imperfection, it adds to the piece. It's almost like it's a part of the piece then. So I do kind of shy away from, you know, not embracing that, because with inherently in my process, it's there. So I mean, that's a great question. Yeah, I just feel like I embrace it just because I'm human. And then I just feel like with technology and things, everything has to be like perfect, and it should be crisp and tight and clean. And it's just like, that's great, but we're so not like that. And people are messy, right? And I don't know, I just kind of think through that when I'm in my process.
Well, I think the non-acting style that's in a lot of this queer film, and that certainly you see in Andy Warhol movies, it's sort of a comment on how fake realism of Hollywood cinema is in this elevation of heterosexuality and patriotism, you know, that their acting style is actually deceitful. And so this kind of blasé, throw it away thing is a response to that.
Hi. So I was really heavily involved in the movement for marriage equality, same-sex marriage after Prop 8 passed, where there was sort of an explosion, like a movement kind of took off overnight. And we did a ton of organizing activism over maybe 2 years. And, you know, organizing and activism is really hard to get people to figure out like good strategies and tactics that are effective. I mean, at the very end, I mean, essentially it kind of fizzled out, but, and it seems like some of the other movements, like Occupy Wall Street, some of the other movements in the last, 10 or 15 years haven't been nearly as sort of effective as, say, ACT UP has. So maybe you could comment on that.
Why they haven't been? Is that the question? I mean, I just wrote a 700-page book about this, but I will try to summarize. You know, unfortunately, there's this thing called the zeitgeist, and you can't force it. And that's like, you know, in these periods, we have enormous gains, and then we have these long periods of give back. And you try to not give back everything until you can get a zeitgeist movement of jumping forward again. I think in America, there's been two different strands of political movements, utopian movements and reform movements. You know, so reform movements would be like emancipation, suffrage, abortion rights, AIDS activism. And utopian movements are like utopian socialists, anarchists, hippies, gay liberation, black power. And we actually move forward when both movements are dynamic and alive at the same time. Those are the most progressive periods. And you just, you know, you just can't make it happen.
Thank you both so much. Oh, sorry. Did I just hijack the question? Okay, sorry, I'm going to go with it.
Suggesting this young woman in the front should go, who's been trying to speak for a long time.
Oh, Eve, here.
I have a question for Rashod. I'm kind of wondering, like, the ethics of when you take photos of people. And I know it kind of changes based on like if you're taking photos of your family members, but then like how does it work with maybe people that might be in the background of the photos? And I guess my experience sometimes has come from like anthropology, and like I know like quote getting permission to take someone's photos might look a lot differently than like as an artist, as a photographer. So I'm kind of wondering like how you go about that.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's mostly my family or friends. I think two different things. So art and then assignment work. So obviously assignment work, you know, that's model releases or whatnot you would do. If there's someone in the background that you can't really decipher or see their likeness, you wouldn't have to get their permission typically. And I would say, my artwork, I ask for permission if I need to get releases for like an award or an institution that it's up. They sometimes ask for releases, especially like with my son, things like that. But yeah, I haven't had too many issues with that, as long as you can't tell who they are. But then street photography is totally different. I know we had this conversation in class today, or was that today or yesterday? Yeah, today actually, about that, and just kind of public, it's kind of fair game in terms of releases for the most part. Is that what you're kind of looking for? Okay.
Of just like lesbian humor, queer humor, there's some camp that goes in there. Just like maybe the process of thinking it through as you're including it, and what's the purpose of it? What purpose does it serve?
Well, as pro-Palestine as I am, I'm still a New York Jew from the middle of the 20th, born in the 1958, and I have that Jewish deadpan. And so it's like, I just say stuff and people laugh. And I don't really think that it's even funny. And then it just is. And it's that, I hate to say this name, but it's that Woody Allen thing. And, it's a cultural moment in history, and I inherited it.
Great. Thank you both so much again for speaking with us today. I wanted to build on the question of imperfection that came up earlier. I mean, both of you, through your work, you work with subjects on whom you really are reliant for some of that like in the moment energy, and in some cases even performance. So how do you manage that tension? Just be curious from each of your perspectives in terms of, the deliberate framing of the art, but also the subject or the performer and what they can offer, and what that exchange is like for all of you to navigate.
Well, for these films, it's all by default because there's no money. Jason and Shirley was made for $40,000. I mean, these are features, that it's so that's just all you can get. There's just not that much choice.
I think from my perspective, a lot of ice cream and candy. Like, I mean, he's 8, so I mean, I think you make a very good point, because I've actually seen the difference as LJ, my son, gets older. Specifically talking about Little Black Boy series, it's definitely getting more challenging, I would say, because he's not as into it as it used to be. Because before he's like, "Oh, I'm doing this. Let's make a picture." I'm like, "Yes, let's do it." And then now it's just like, I don't know, man. What do you? So I think it's definitely something I've thought about. So I try to make it fun, but honestly, like, if he's not into it, then we won't make any pictures. Sometimes though, I'll start doing self-portraits, and then he'll get interested when I'm doing it, the act of myself making my art. But it's one of those things that I'm never gonna force. And when the day comes and he's like, "Hey, I'm not in, don't do it," then I'm like, "Hey, that's fine." I mean, I still photograph other things that I just don't show yet. So, but, I hope that day doesn't come, but it will.
Hi. I love you. I think you're genius. I don't have a question for you. I know. I was wondering, black and white photos, are there color photos in your work at all?
No. I'm thinking. No, I had to think.
Good.
No, I had to think. No, I don't think so. I'm just like an old soul. I really enjoy black and white, partly because it just strips everything else away, and it helps me focus on what's most important as I compose the image. I don't get, I mean, I think color is beautiful, and I think it does take, you know, and maybe it's just, I'm so used to black and white, that's why, that's kind of my go-to. And I don't want to get distracted by colors, because I'm kind of like like, oh, squirrel, oh, color, this color. You know, like, it's just a lot for me, especially dealing with like my son and trying to organize all of that. I feel like it just makes it simpler, and I always try to keep things simple and not too complex or convoluted, because I want the final image to be clear, or at least clear to me, and then hopefully that translates to the viewer.
Thank you both.
Question. Oh, perfect timing. I wanted to ask you both about subjectivity, in the ways in which, I mean, the question relates to the both of you directly, right? I mean, Rashod, what's really remarkable about the work is the iconic Douglass and the now iconic LJ, correct? And this sort of looking and looking back, and the expectation in the ways in which that builds under the sort of frame of subjectivity writ large. And the sort of other layer over this is nationhood, you know, America. And Sarah, I also think similarly around the notion of subjectivity and the staring back, the sort of unleashing of the erotic, the unleashing of humor, the unleashing of the joy of seeing oneself, playing with one another, playing with the sun, playing with your own version of community as you form in community, the space between the utopic and it really, the word that comes to mind is the military, right? Nationhood, and what it means to be working, and perhaps to build on KB's notion of what does it mean to be working now. And you know, I haven't read the 700 pages, I'm dying to, but under the rubric of what it means to be in this moment of, actually, because I don't see the tintypes as black and white. Like, they're not, because there's so many multiple colors under there. And I don't see porn, you know, as anything other than this sort of announcement of what does it mean to be a kind of transitory figure, a participant in a commitment to what it means to be a patriot. Are you both patriots in your work is the question. USA. US.
Again, so I'll answer this way. I'll say, like in my work, it's complicated, right? It's complicated because, of course, in one way, yeah, I'm a patriot. Like, I think United States, I mean, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I mean, maybe like, I don't know, Fiji or Canada or something maybe. But other than that, like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay living in the United States. You know, I'm okay with that. But it's complicated because at the same time, I'm torn because how can I be okay with living in a country that treats people that look like me how they do, right? Like, how can I be okay with that too? And so these are it's like the conundrum of life for, at least for me as a black man. It's like, man, where do I fall? Because the negative part is affecting me and my son, my family, but then I also think of, well, what's the alternative? Is the grass greener on the other side? Maybe. I guess I need to do some more research if I want to go somewhere else. But you see what I'm saying? Like, I think, and it goes deeper than that. But it's always just a conundrum for me when you say the word patriot or patriotism. So I like to answer.
Thinking of the sign of the flag and Wakanda and the ways in which, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the process of, I mean, there's this radical break. Like, no, I'm not a patriot yet. You're offering a significant archive of an American formation in a place when many artists are struggling to figure out what it means to be USA when you're actually could be hit by a 700-pound Trump truck and a flag. Do you know what I mean? Like, you do have to make certain decisions. So to say
True.
no, and
I see what you're saying.
also to present 700 pages, is that a kind of flag? And what are the ways in which you're signaling to? Because we are in like a moment in which I'm wearing this hat, and someone asks me walking down the street, how is your day? I'm thinking, it's fine. You really should think of having you should really think about transferring over to Boston or something. And I said, there are 1,000 things I can say and do. Two of them are this. One is, I would have to care about baseball, and I would have to care about nationhood. That's my answer, right? My answer always has to come from this. I'm curious
I'll let you go. I'll just say this, because this could take a while. But I think I go back to another comment someone said about flawed. I think, right. When you think of this idea of flawedness, there's no nation that's perfect. Patriotism isn't perfect. I mean, it's like, how far do we want to go to that? But again, I'll answer with another statement of, I don't know. And that's an amazing point. I mean, that's something that, I don't know if there's I don't know if I really have a great answer, because I think it's kind of a little bit of both, even though I don't like it. Huh? Yeah. Right.
This is also a question for both of you. Part of it's informed by something Sarah said, and part of it comes from Rashod's talk. But I was really hoping that you could both speak to both parts. The first part is, I was just wondering about your thoughts about similarities or maybe differences between Portrait of Jason and Paris is Burning. And then relatedly, I was really intrigued by what you said about how Frederick Douglass recognized the potential of how having his portrait taken could be a form of empowerment in the 19th century. And I wondered if that was related to like the wet plate process, partly like the amount of labor that's required to produce an image like that means that, I don't know, it kind of dignifies the person being portrayed in a way, and that the image itself reflects that labor, whereas the films kind of make the making of it disappear in the way that they make the filmmaker disappear, except for, I think, Livingston, like you hear her voice once or something. That's it.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarity between Shirley Clarke's Portrait of Jason and Jenny Livingston's Paris is Burning. I think that that's a strong connection. It's white women who cannot get into the white male system. Like Shirley Clarke was Oscar nominated for a short about Robert Frost, and then she could not get a feature. So she went to New York and became an experimental filmmaker in the 60s and made 4 films about black men. And I believe Jenny Livingston has never been able to make another feature. Is that right? Yeah. So it's white women who can't get into the white male system who are then able to control representations of black people. Yeah. And Bell Hooks wrote an incredible piece about Paris is Burning in Black Looks. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you made a couple great points. I think the process itself has this reverence to it, right? Because it's labor intensive. And I think with with the subjects that I photograph, I think just like the parallel of Frederick Douglass, he was, in some of those images, he was photographed in the same way with the wet plate process. And it does, I agree, like it elevates the subject, but then also the fact of the longevity of it and the legacy that it leaves, more so than just at least other photographic mediums in my mind, right? Because we're still looking at pictures from, the 1800s that are still in pristine shape, or you're looking at daguerreotypes and things like that. But I think that it elevates the image. It makes it important. It makes it, this piece of history that needs to be preserved and seen. And then I do like that parallel. That's an interesting parallel. And you kind of mentioned that too, about the iconicness of LJ and with the flag, and then talking about Frederick Douglass. And I think that I'm trying to elevate those images, right? So they do look like that, because you do see black people elevated in these images, and you see black life even in both series that I have elevated in a way, right? And I think that's important for the work. Hey, we gotta go. You should get a picture. Stand up.
Remember, Sarah will be reading, I'm signing books at the back if you want to get the, you got the selfie going here. And come back tomorrow for our student night. Sign up if you haven't